It does.
Mama, what are some of your fondest memories?
Oh dear, I got too many of them.
Well, tell us
The
about
first
how-
fondest memory I have is when I got my big doll baby, because we never got much for Christmas. One gift, each one. And this one Christmas, I guess I was about 5 years old, and my cousin Martha was going to get a doll baby for Christmas, and I was along with Aunt Cora when she was asking Martha what she wanted for Christmas, and I know she'd get it because what she wanted she got. You know, they were able to do it. And this big doll baby was there, and Martha was going to get, that's what she wanted for Christmas, so I know she'd get it, or at least I felt she would. But when I got up on Christmas morning, why, I had the doll.
And you were surprised?
Sure was. Couldn't have been more surprised.
What are some of your other fond memories?
The day I got my Bible for Christmas.
Who got you that?
Papa.
When?
Oh no. When was it? It must have been about 1956. Wasn't it?
Wasn't home that long.
I don't think it was the first Christmas we moved back. Was it? What?
56.
You still have that Bible?
Hmm?
Still have that Bible?
Yeah, I still have it, but it's pretty well worn.
Is that the one that I carried in our
Yeah,
wedding?
it's the one you carried in your wedding. I was more surprised, I believe, with that than I was the doll, because I never expected him to go out and buy a Bible for me. But he did. I don't know.
What about some of your other fond memories? Christmas or otherwise?
Oh dear.
What are some of the things your children used to do?
To really nag you. Let's hear some dirt.
They weren't all that bad. They used to fight with each other a lot.
Used to.
They still do. Yeah, they still do. Let's see. Of course, when Ellen was born, and she was the only one, why, she was really it, you know. Then along came Sam, and they got along pretty good when they were little. They didn't have too many problems, but as more came, why, the more they fought.
I have another question for you. What advice would you like to give to your great-great-grandchildren? If you could do that, if you could go into the future,
Great-great-grandchildren.
what is it that you would like to tell them that you think that might change their life? This question comes about because throughout your life, you've seen certain ways and lifestyles and how they've changed in America.
Yeah.
And you see the progress or lack of progress in different areas. So if you was to predict, in your opinion, how they would be in the future, what advice would you like to give them that may...
Well, I think the advice for everybody is to show love to one another and be honest. And they'll get through life.
Let God. Let God. Let God.
Okay, if you two could tell me a little bit about yourselves, about when you were born, who your parents were, and...
Who are you talking to, her?
Both of you.
All right.
I was born in July 1908.
July 18th, 1908.
I'm a twin. I'm
Okay.
a twin sister.
And her name is?
Eliza Broke. She died the 2nd of July of this year. I am one of 9 children, and there's only 2 of us left anymore.
There's 3 of you left.
I have 2 sisters, 3 of us left.
Okay. And where were you born?
Oh, in Beaver Township.
Which is where?
Well, about 12 miles from Bloomsburg. And I lived there till I was 12.
And what's your father and mother's name?
Charles and Sarah Elizabeth Nye. And my dad had a country store, and it had the postmaster. It was a postmaster at the post office. And we moved to Bloomsburg when I was 12 years old. And we lived there most of our life. We married in Bloomsburg, and we're still living there. So.
And you remember where your parents are from? Are they from this area originally?
My dad is from down around Schuylkill Haven. He was born down through there. And my mother was born over in Beaver Township. Did most of her life over there.
How about you?
Me?
Yeah. You.
What do you want to know?
When he was born.
I was born 10/31/05.
Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah.
And then what?
Well, what can you tell me?
What were you
What do you
dad's
remember?
name?
I grew up in Bloomsburg. I was born in Bloomsburg in Park Street.
On Park Street.
I can't give you the house number. Those
That's
numbers
okay.
aren't there
That's
anymore.
okay, but you were born in a house rather than in a hospital.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Born in the house. And I was the first baby born after Dr. R.E. Miller started practice.
Okay.
I was the first baby.
So you do remember a little bit more than what you think you do then.
Oh, who said I didn't?
Okay. Okay, tell me what else you remember.
Well,
How
now,
about anything? About when you were a little kid? What did you like to do? Did you have a favorite tree you liked to climb?
Your mother died when you was.
well, I was, all right. The earliest thing I remember was going to first grade at 151 Sharp Street, Kingston,
Up in Kingston.
because we lived in Kingston when I was 6 years old. I started school there. So I had to go in there to have his tonsils and adenoids removed. And then my father was Martin Luther Gruber, and of course he had a job up there. We're all from around Bloomsburg, but he was up there, so then he moved his family up there. So that's how I get up there. And somewhere around that time there was a brother born, Elias Herbert Gruber, and he was 2 years younger than me. And he was a mama's boy. And when I was going to school up there, he was running around all day with my mother, tagging along after her. And I know that when we lived in Kingston a while, then we moved to Dornston, about 2 miles up the road. And I don't know what my father did then. He was doing some kind of work up there. But I know that my mother and Elias was out on the street, out of the house. And my mother was talking to the neighbors. She says, "I smell my coffee cooking, I better go in." So Elias went ahead of, he was 4 years old. And he went ahead of her and reached up on the stove and pulled the coffee pot off the stove, and it ran right down over him.
Oh.
So I remember when my mother was looking at him, she pulled his clothes off and the skin come off with it. So anyhow, he was 4 years and 22 days old when he died. And that was in early December of, I can't tell you which year. But if I was 6, it would be 1911. Yes, so he was buried right before Christmas in 1911. And then my mother wanted to move down to Bloomsburg. Well, they were all strangers to her up there. And she wanted to move down to Bloomsburg. And then my father moved the two of us down to Bloomsburg, and I don't know what he did, but I think he got a job with the American Car and Foundry Company. That is well, they were making things for the government, boxcars and such as that. American Car and Foundry is the name of it. And we moved down there. He got a job there, and we moved to Bloomsburg to down to 7th Street. And I started in 2nd grade at 5th Street School in 2nd grade. And we lived on 7th Street. And let's see, what else do you want to know? Well,
What was your first job?
my first job, I was weeding at Dillon's. They grow flowers. And I was up there weeding.
And how old were you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Young.
10, 11, 12, something like that. And then we lived down on 7th Street for a while, I don't know how long. And then we moved up to
Glen Avenue.
Glen Avenue. And there were 6 houses up there, and I had aunts and uncles living up there, and my grandmother lived up there. And then I know I was a morning press boy delivering papers in Bloomsburg, and I know my father told me about 3 or 4 days before my 14th birthday. And he says, you'll be going to school on Friday, but Monday you won't be going to school, because I got you a job down at the hosier mill when I was 14 years old. So I had to, well, I looked up, tried to find somebody to take the paper out, and I finally got Boog Swisher. And the paper route I had included my own home. It was from Main Street north and from Center Street east, including Teachers College and that whole hill there. I was the morning press boy for that. So I got him to do it. And then I started at the hosier mill, and I was turning stockings inside out.
How many hours a day did you work?
I think 10 hours a day then.
10 hours a day at the age of 14.
Yeah.
Didn't give you much free time then, did it?
No.
How much were you paid?
I think it was 50 cents an hour. I think it was 50 cents an hour.
That seems like a lot for that.
Yeah, you got 50 cents an hour we was married. But you wasn't getting 50 cents at 14 years old. I don't think.
Maybe 15.
Yes.
Uh,
That would sound more like it. Well, when were you adopted? 14? No.
that thing's keep on running,
I
ain't
know
it?
it is.
That's okay.
When was you adopted?
Uh,
What year did your mother die?
I think she died in 1919.
What did she die of?
No, female trouble, I suppose you might say.
I can't,
Didn't she die right after Paul was born? Paul was a baby when she died, wasn't he?
he was 4 years old.
Was he?
Yeah. When we moved up to
Glen Avenue.
Glen Avenue, and there Orville was born in 1914, and Paul was born in 1916.
And your
See?
mother died in 1919, and he was 3 years old.
Paul was 3 years old when his mother died,
Okay.
and Orville was
Adopted.
yes, Orville was adopted.
Who was he adopted by?
Uncle Worley.
Uh,
Your mother's brother.
yes. My name is Worley. I was named after my uncle, Worley Walter. Well, now he adopted Orville, the oldest one. And my grandmother lived next door. She adopted Paul. And
You was.
and then I worked at the hosiery mill. See, and I was going to, I was a freshman in high school. And school started, well, I was going to high school until I got 14 years old. And then I had to go to work. And I was taken out of school. Well, now, that was in October 31st. The following February, I was adopted by Joe and
Bernie.
Bernie.
Verna Stevens of 145 East 6th Street, Bloomsburg.
And that's how you got
And they,
your last name as Steve.
and then I went back to school. And I was out of school from the 1st of November until the middle of February. And the teachers were pretty good to me. They helped me as much as I can. I could. And I passed that year on a 90.
Well, that's great.
Yes.
Missing over half a school year and coming back.
Well,
Fourth of it, isn't it?
Well,
quite a bit.
quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit. After you got back into school and so on, when did you meet your wife? How did you two meet?
Well,
I'm sure we're going to have some conflicting stories here.
The Bloomsburg Fair was on one time, and
I and my twin sister was walking around in the fairground. And you and your friend of yours was walking around in the fairground, and we met. And we
Yep.
stopped and talked.
all right,
And I think then you walked me home. And from that time off and on we dated.
that's right, that's right.
And do you remember what year that was?
No, because we was married in 1927, and we went together about 3 years, and before we was married,
So it would probably be around 1924.
something like that.
I see.
And then we was married in 1927.
Okay, what was it like after you got married? What was your wedding like?
Well, we just was married at the preacher's house, just the two of us, and we had some guests at the house, and they was there. My mother fixed a nice dinner for us, and but there wasn't. My dad had to go to work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we was married at 2. And then we had, we didn't have no wedding trip or anything like that. We went to right away to work on Monday morning, and we had no trip at all.
Where did you spend your wedding night?
At my home down on 9th Street. And so I was the last one to leave home. Well, I had a brother, but he was gone most of the time. But I was the last one to leave home. And my mother, before we got, a couple of months before we got married, Mom and Dad bought us a nice bedroom suit, so I could fix up my bedroom real nice. And but because we didn't have no trip, and we lived at home for a while before we went to housekeeping, the 1st of May. I know, I don't forget what year. And then we had
1928.
because we had Gerald was born, and we had
Even Gerald's
we went to
full
housekeeping, huh?
name. Even Gerald's full name.
Gerald Leroy Stevens. And then we went to housekeeping the 1st of May, and we lived there a while. Then the Depression came, and that was like your Mama Snyder said, that was a tough time for us because there was just no work at all. And Gerald had to be operated on, and
What did he have to be operated on?
a hernia, and he was only about 2 years old, and we moved out of that house on 10th and Catherine Street and into half of a double house on Center Street, and we lived there
On Center Street.
on Center Street, and then we lived there for Richard was born in 1940. And then Richard was only 6 weeks old the day we moved from Center Street out to 8th Street. And we lived there on 8th Street till in 1948 we bought a home over in the country. Down within the,
Was that what you refer to as Schumanntown?
yes, down within the first, within how many? Just a short way from the store where I was, where my dad had the store.
Half a block.
Yeah, from the store and post office. And so I went back there, and I lived and was neighbors to a lot of my school friends, people that I went to school with. They was grown up, and they had babies and their own, and they still lived in Beaver Township. So it was just, I knew an awful lot of people. Worley, it was new to Worley, but to me, I knew about everybody. And then back in '58, we lost our oldest boy, and from there we come back to Bloomsburg to live.
How did Uncle Gerald die?
Car accident. And then Ricky, his son, was only 3 years old. And then we lived on Catherine Street.
Then you got me in the family.
Huh? Yeah, we got. And then we had 2 nice, wonderful daughter-in-laws. We didn't have any girls of our own, but our boys brought us 2 nice girls. And then
She doesn't watch it. She's going to be on the camera next.
Then we bought up to a home up in Almedia, where we live now. And we've been there now since till 1966.
Give them the date. Today is Christmas,
Yeah.
December 25th, 1988.
We've lived there.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's all I can tell you. Then we had we had pretty good after the Depression. In 1945, Worley got a job at the carpet mill, and then it went pretty good. He had a check coming in every week, and we picked up. And then during the war, in 1945, Worley went on defense plants and has a pipe fitting, and he would travel an awful lot. The first job was in Allenwood, and then in Kentucky, and from Virginia and Ohio and New Jersey and all over he traveled, and I was alone. I went with him in the summertime when the boys wasn't in school. And then we had, it went pretty good that we could get something and we could live better.
Mm-hmm.
But then we bought all secondhand cars about for a while. Our first new car was a new Chevrolet, wasn't it? We bought that in about
I don't know.
1955. We bought a Plymouth, I think it was 1955. And then from then on, all cars we bought was new ones. And we had some nice trips, but we could go on vacation because he'd get a week or two vacation from the mill with pay. Mm-hmm. And then we went on these trips, mostly out to Ohio to visit my sister. And our nicest trip, was, of course, was our cruise. But outside that way, we got along okay. So, now.
What are some of your most fondest memories, either of raising your children or just your life together?
Some of my fondest memories is Christmas morning with the boys anxious to see what Santa Claus brought them, and having Christmas there. And
Where was this, in Schumantown?
Yes. No. They was all grown up. Richard was only 8 years old when we moved to Schumantown. He was out of, he didn't believe in Santa Claus anymore.
So this was in Bloomsburg?
All in Bloomsburg. And to see Christmas morning, to see.
Is there any one Christmas that stands out in your mind?
Well, I don't think so, because to me, Christmas isn't always a happy time for me. And
Papa, what are some of your fondest memories?
Nothing right now comes to mind.
Did you talk about Did you talk about when you were first married a little bit?
off and on, different times, we bring back memories of how tough it was getting started. And
How about what color was her nightie?
I don't have the least idea if I had a 90.
Whirly Stephen.
She was
We're back on.
Okay, we're back on.
So tell us more about the 90.
Well, I had a pink nightie I wore.
Papa, was there any favorite dress of hers when you were courting?
Oh no,
You didn't have there wasn't a particularly favorite dress that